Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm going to wait a couple of moments whilst whilst the attendees spool in. We've got about 150 registered. We probably expect about 2/3 of those to be attending. This webinar will be posted on the ETOA website in due course. Okay, well, good morning. My name's Tom Jenkins. I work for ETOA. You should have seen a banner a second ago advertising the Britain and Ireland marketplace, which is one of our major marketplaces that we have, but on this occasion focusing on Britain and Ireland, and we're very pleased to be doing it in conjunction with British Airways. Sorry, British Visit Britain. How dare I get that wrong? With Visit Britain and also with UK Inbound and other associations. We normally have about 200. We normally have about 200 buyers, probably 250 buyers sitting at tables, and around about 300 suppliers. So it's a very worthwhile day. Those of you who, on the subject of workshops, we're obviously running up towards our GEM workshop, which is taking place on October the 31st of this year. If any of you haven't registered yet, this is your last chance to do so. Anyway, let's get on with the webinar. This is sponsored by B4B Payments. I think some of you have been watching the promotional video. We'll see that promotional video again in a while, because this event would not take place without our sponsor. But I'm absolutely delighted to be joined here today by GoCity, Uber Boat for Thames Clippers, London and Partners, and Group Tour Shop. We've got a couple of questions already posted. Those of you, please, who are here, please post questions in the Q&A. It is absolutely really not vital, but it's really helpful for us to have a degree of dialogue, not just between each other, but between the people watching in this webinar. Right, I'm going to just ask everyone to introduce themselves and explain what their companies do and what they do. And in no particular order, I'm going to turn to Shirley. Shirley, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Shirley. I'm currently the Regional Director for London and Dublin at GoCity. In case you're not familiar with GoCity, we are the company behind the London Pass. We run a multi-attraction pass, bringing very good value to the customers, giving them flexibility and convenience using our app. The idea is that the customer pay a fixed price and they are able to visit as many attractions as they want within a set time frame, let's say 3 days, 5 days, and they will get a QR code. They just need that one QR code and they will be able to choose what they want from our portfolio and enjoy a lot of iconic attractions and also lesser known hidden gems. Some of you would previously know me from my previous life, as I worked for a couple of prominent tour operators and bringing inbound groups to the UK. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you.
Gregory. You're on mute, Gregory.
Hi, everyone, and welcome, Tom. Thank you very much for a very kind introduction. It's very exciting to be the part of this discussion about the current and future landscape for tourism, inbound tourism in Britain. It's been a very exciting year and lots of new trends emerging. I'll be very happy to share this feedback. I'm representing Uber Boat by Thames Clippers, which is, in a very short way, River Thames transportation and sightseeing. Thank you.
Thank you, Gregory. Letitia.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Leticia. I am the head of product for Group Tour Shop. We are a DMC. We operate tours in UK and Ireland, all over mainland Europe, really, Southern Africa and Japan. 90% of our clientele come from Australasia, Northern America. We noticed that this market is generally interested in good value for money. They mainly baby boomers, in most cases first timers wishing to tick all the main sites. But we noticed as well that they are happy to broaden their budgets for better culinary experiences. In 2025, Group Tour Shop is operating 250 tours that have a minimum of 2 nights in London, giving us approximately just over 11,000 passengers into London this year. Lovely to meet you all.
Thank you. And Richard.
Thanks, Tom. Morning, everyone. Lovely to be here. I work for London and Partners. I'm the head of destination, and I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more detail around destination and the experience economy through the course of the next hour. But in terms of London and Partners, in case anyone hasn't heard of us, we are London's growth agency. And our mission is quite simple. We create economic growth for London that is broadly across resilience, sustainability, and inclusivity. We're a social enterprise, which means that we're funded in part by the Mayor of London and various other UK SPF funds as well as the private sector. We have a real broad span of activity, and I won't bore everyone with the depth of what we do. But in essence, we create that growth and promote the city as a great place to invest, visit, study, or live in. And aligned to that, we obviously highlight the London brand and with a series of high impact media campaigns. We've been around for just over a decade. Previous iterations, people will remember us on the call us as purely being Visit London, and as a marketing agency, we're now much broader, as I've mentioned, than that. But over the last decade or so, that's resulted in 3.5 billion into the London economy, 2,500 overseas companies being attracted to be here, and in terms of tourism, 220 odd million international visitors to the capital city. Great to be here. Thanks, Tom.
Well, I think we're all agreed it's great to have them. I suppose the opening question really to everybody, on your note, is how is London doing at the moment? I mean, we've seen obviously a huge bounce back from COVID, and we saw a real sugar rush of American visitors coming in 23 and 24, really the end of 22, 23, 24. And there are reasons we could go into as to why that happened. Has this continued into this year, I suppose, is the open question. Letitia, I mean, Letitia, you handle that market. What is the general demand looking like from your point of view?
So we have a little bit of a mix, because initially at the beginning of the year, due to some political situations, we noticed that the Northern America market was a bit shy. And we also noticed that maybe they weren't booking the product so far ahead as we are used to. We noticed how those, periods of time in between the booking and actual operation reduce. We got quite a few last minute bookings. For us are not ideal, because obviously we operate very large operations with like full coaches. But we did notice that the Northern America market still came. It just wasn't exactly in the way they used to do it previously, a bit more planned. Yeah.
They're still coming, you're saying. I'm just intrigued what you're saying. They're still coming, you're saying, but it's slightly different. In what way is it different?
I think it was mainly to do with the fact that they were a little bit concerned with how their economy could change. And there was a bit of instability. Obviously, there is a lot of instability at the moment in the world for multiple reasons. And I think that made people be a little bit shy about coming. It wasn't specific to London. I think it has been specific to coming to Europe in general. But we did notice that in the end they just didn't book their tours maybe so far ahead. So they were more last minute bookings. That was a main change for us.
And just to add to that, Tom, if I can butt in, and just to provide a little bit of context for those on the call. So 2024, as a year, we had 21 million international visitors. That was a 4% increase on 2023. I'm sure most are aware that the US is the key market from a London context. I think that the message that we're giving out for then running into this year is one of cautious optimism. I think some of you've touched upon it, Letitia, in terms of the political instability and nervousness perhaps in the US market has affected certain matters. But as I said, it was a cautious optimism in respect to those numbers achieving at least parity as we move through and finish 2025. I think also while I'm hogging the mic, as it would, and one of the questions on there starts to talk into the sort of average length of stay. So if you're happy, Tom, I can answer a little bit of those. what we're seeing is our international visitors are staying longer. So in terms of short haul, our average currently is around about 4.4 days, which is now back to 2019 sort of pre-pandemic levels. In terms of long haul, the average there is around about 7.3 days, and that's give or take the same. I think it's about 0.5% difference, but who's arguing in terms of 2019 figures. So we're seeing domestic tourism has had a hit. That's about 10% down. Just in terms of numbers, London receives about 14 million overnight trips from our domestic audience, worth about 5.5 billion. And as I said, that's down about 10% on last year's figures, or the year before, so 2023 figures.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. I mean, sorry, Gregory, it was a question to you, really. I mean, how do you see the current situation as opposed to previous years?
We notice continuous growth, which is very interesting, given all the changes and challenges in a global scale. We see growth in all markets. Dynamics are changing. The ways customers book their travel and experiences is changing. And I agree that people tend to book more within short period of time, short booking window. And I think that everyone can agree the majority of the bookings happens within 1 to 3 days, which is pretty much when the visitors are already in a destination. And that's quite interesting because that is determining how do we market our products and what sort of partnerships we're focusing on. America is strong. Europe is very stable. We see sharp rise in the Asian market, which is in the overall scale, I don't think is anywhere near where it was prior to pandemic, but it's very encouraging, definitely.
And Shirley, how's everything looking at the moment?
Looking at GoCity business, I echo a bit what Letitia was mentioning, because we are pretty heavy on North American markets, which makes sense because North America has been such a big market in London, for London in general anyway. And I heard about that more than half of the North Americans in the US have stocks. And when the stock market is not doing very well, and when the market is volatile, people are a bit more careful with their money. Cautious optimism is definitely the right expression on that. It's not like they're not coming, they're still coming. A lot of them are still very in love with coming to UK, coming to London, but people are a bit more careful on their money. They may not be staying as long as they used to. They may not be visiting as many attractions as they would have wanted to. They would still do a lot of things, but they are a little bit more careful with their spending.
It's interesting what you're saying. I mean, if you're looking at the demand pattern for Europe as a whole, not just the UK, not just London, we've kept a reasonably close monitor on it. And as everyone is saying, demand from North America prior to February was at record levels. We looked like we were having another record year. People were posting double-digit growth. Really all across all product categories. This suddenly ground to a halt in February, not because of the change in the political situation, but because, as everyone's pointed out, because of the change in the stock market and the change in the value of the dollar. And people on vacation, in broad terms, are spending money that they've got saved in the stock market. If that's looking fat, then they've got money. And suddenly they found they had less money that they could count on because stock market didn't necessarily go down, it went volatile. So they didn't know they had that money to spend. And the money they had to spend suddenly was worth less because the dollar got devalued. And this punctured a lot of demand, and suddenly things dried up for about 2 to 3 months. It's now coming back again, which is good news. And the other good news for those of you in that sector is the top end of the market is absolutely rock solid. We've heard a lot of my luxury and tour operators sold out before February, and those who still have product have got no problem selling it. So, in terms of intermediaries, which is what we represent, the North American market is looking solid. I'll get back to ask you questions. What's intriguing, and Gregory was pointing this out, is that there is signs of life in East Asia. There's been no sign of life in East Asia up until now. but we're starting to see demand trickle in from Japan, demand trickle in from China. And the big news is that India is showing almost as strong growth as North America, albeit from a much, much more reduced base. So that's the market conditions. How London responds to that is an open question. I suppose really the next question is, and it's prompted by the question posed in the chat, is is there any new product on the market? Is there any new patterns of behavior on the market? I suppose what's new is the question. Where I mean, there's a lot of bucket list of products out there, but what's new that's floating people's boat? And using that dreadful link, I will turn to Gregory immediately and ask him if there's any insight he's got on that level.
Yes, I do. It's interesting. Visitors definitely focus on the must-see, iconic attractions, but the very visible trend is they tend to pair that with additional experiences. So they're looking for more discovery of the local or more vibrant areas. And it's a very visible trend. It's been for a while, and I think it's going to continue. People looking for more immersive experience. They're looking for added value to the products. They're also looking for the journey to the destination being the part of the experience, which for us is very important as well. This is what's very beneficial for our service. When you travel from Westminster, let's say to North Greenwich to use an IFS cable car, you would like to enjoy the journey, not just spend it on the train and watching the ads or other people's faces. It's quite interesting to see that. It's the way the customers book, the way they decide on the decisions, what to do. And just going back to what you said before, the visitors come in large numbers, but they becoming more picky. They're becoming more spontaneous. Instead of maybe doing 5 activities, they would decide on 3. They don't decide until the very last moment. So that's very important for us to be able to facilitate that, to have a service that is available, just to capture that market and the footfall.
Richard, you do a lot of work on this. So what's the new what's new on the block, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, Gregory, you just hit the nail on the head there and probably stole a little bit of my thunder. But there's 2 broad points I wanted to make. One is around the value of the experience economy and what we mean by that. And then perhaps if I may, I'll touch upon what we're doing strategically around destination, which is very much, Gregory, what you were alluding to, which is the rise in the drive for authentic experience, locally led, live like a local neighborhood experiences, and what we're doing in that space. But in terms of the experience economy, if I can broadly, if we call it that, as we are now doing, I mean, our guiding star within that is London's growth plan, which is for the first time in a long time, London's had a unity behind what it wants to do for the next 10 years. And within that, the experience economy and enlivening local places, as it's called, are 2 of the central pillars to drive forward London's growth. You touched upon immersive. That's really a key trend, Gregory. I mean, the market currently is approximately £98 billion and is exponential growth over the next 5 years. And we see, obviously, a string of these right across London. Lost Estate, Immerse London and XL, Phantom Peak, Canada Water, and of course, Aber Voyage is a really good example of build it and they will come. That was built on a meanwhile space, earmarked originally for 2 years, and 3 years later, it's the 2 million visitors. And then that throws up a whole host of questions as to what you do, just as you said, Gregory, around the customer journey. So then our destination strategy really feeds into that context, being both the London Growth Plan and our own experience strategy. We know that people who stay longer have a more enriching experience, and we know, as I've just said, that they want a niche experience. So we are now working with the boroughs right across London, not just in central London, which is a new departure for us as a DMO and for a lot of other DMOs. We're not purely just concentrating on the marketing and comms, but we're working around place shaping and that experience journey, and we're working with boroughs and neighbourhoods who perhaps historically have not thought of themselves as being destinations, but now that people want that live like a local, more authentic set of experiences that ties into perhaps a regenerative model, then it works really well for them. And so we're working with our boroughs, and some of those are at different stages of the journey. But if we think of a Stratford, or you mentioned, Greenwich or Woolwich areas, significant growth areas there, or Wembley Park over the last 15 years, these have now become new destinations in their own right. And now it's about us trying to map out how we embed the experience within the community, how we work to, because of course people, as you just said, Gregory, again, you don't just go to an experience in isolation, it's your whole physical and virtual experience of the journey that you have along the way. So very long-winded, perhaps, Tom, but that's the areas in which we're now starting to think. We're very much building out place. We're working not just in the centre of London in Zone 1, but right across London, and looking for equitable growth in some key areas, particularly those which, as I mentioned, have aligned to the growth plan, and have signified significant potential in terms of the international visitor.
If I may
Tom,
just,
Tom,
sorry.
I couldn't agree more actually with what Richard is saying, and I have lots of examples that I can share of incredible things that we do, things that people ask for, and sometimes what people think they want is not exactly what they want as well, and how you can provide them what they want even before they knew they wanted, kind of thing. But obviously London is iconic. We all love it. We all know what it can provide us, like the first time you look at the Big Ben, things like that. We cannot avoid. Our people want to go and see these places, but all the places like a bit more off the beaten path. It doesn't mean that they are places nobody has heard of, but they are places that are still famous, but maybe not as visited. Some of the boroughs that you were mentioning. For example, we believe that the sweetest spot is possibly the combo of both.
Mm-hmm.
And we strongly promote other areas of London outside of the obvious Westminster borough. And we take our guests to alternative places like Greenwich, like Tower Hamlets, Hackney. These places are also very famous for Whitechapel, Spitalfields, East End. We can provide amazing experiences here as well. So to give you an example, we run an itinerary that goes for a whole day that is really popular for us. Understanding that a lot of our market is Australian and Northern America, sometimes they get very overwhelmed if they spend a couple of days in London. It's really busy, it's jam-packed, sometimes they don't feel comfortable in this environment. So we actually start the day taking them to Greenwich in the morning. This gives them an experience to enjoy a little bit more relaxed sightseeing in the morning. You get amazing open spaces, excellent viewpoints of the city, very historical. And then in the afternoon, we take them to the busier part of town, tick some of these most iconic Big Ben, Buckingham Palace, Piccadilly Circus spots that everyone wants to see. But at the time they started to get a bit tired and a bit overloaded with all the lights and all the signs and everything, you kind of walk them slightly away from Piccadilly into Mayfair. And suddenly for third time on the day, you change in the pace, you keep them highly engaged the whole time. And you take them then, to an area of Mayfair that make them feel really good, how wonderful this architecture, a bit more fancy. And we finish the day with a well-deserved dinner in a historical venue. So this is an opportunity to offer not just the obvious, but, so much more. And I have lots of other examples of immersive local experiences as well, if you want to hear about later.
And Greg, you were trying to say something a moment ago.
Yeah, I was just about to add something. Because we very frequently think that the capacity in London is an issue, which I don't think is necessarily the truth. I think the challenge is the awareness for end customers how easy it might be to move around London. And I use river service as an example. With us having 24 piers, that means being any area, probably except Madame Tussauds being accessible. And that makes a massive difference. And that's how we can activate the local in destinations, which is the Battersea, Greenwich Peninsula, Woolwich, and other areas. And lots of pressure is actually now on communicating to the end customers and broadly to the partners within industry that we can facilitate the service, we can help you to build your itineraries, we can make it accessible, we can make it unique for the products you're going to offer to the end customers.
Great. May I also add, I think I'm very happy to hear that we are all in unison about balancing the old iconic heritage attractions and new, more immersive experiences. What you guys have said was pretty much what I was thinking as well, that a lot of customers, for example, first timers, they would love to see the Tower of London, the likes of St. Paul's Cathedral. To be honest, even repeat customers would do that. Looking at GoCity's statistics, we have like these iconic attractions that some people might have thought, oh yeah, they are too touristy, they are the typical stuff. They are still the very top tourist attractions that were visited by domestic market, international markets, long haul, short haul. So people come to London because one of the big drivers to come to London is the heritage and the culture and the history. So definitely iconic attractions still play a super important part in London tourism. But it's also true that a lot of customers are looking for more personalized. They want a special, unique experience that it's only to themselves, where they can take very memorable pictures and share with their friends and families. Sometimes it might be the likes of a Bal Voyage or that kind of immersive dining experience with Lost Estates. These are great. And sometimes some customers who have a different budget might be able to enjoy that as well by joining some of the local walking tours, or even joining a bike tours, going through some secret alleys in London that they wouldn't have ever thought about. These kind of more low-key but still fun and personalized experiences have been very popular as well, as far as we could see.
And surely that also taps into sort of that whole trend around wellness and sustainable as well, you know, because it's low impact, as you've just highlighted. I mean, we had some interesting statistics that came into us recently around, so 62%, not perhaps unsurprisingly, of our visitors feel better about themselves when they travel sustainably, but actually one of the particularly interesting one is that 67% are then inspired to be more sustainable at home by what they've witnessed and experienced when traveling and in destination. So so just to back up what you were saying, that low impact is really key in terms of how we are now trying to explore that. And you're absolutely right, and we may get a chance later to touch upon some of our marketing and comms and engagement, how we're reflecting the balance and marriage between iconic and unique and surprising, which is some of our core threads in how we're starting to tell London's story more fully than just the iconic or just the local, but that marriage between the two.
Absolutely. I often think, sorry, Tom, just a quick note. I often think that the tourism landscape in London is very much like London cityscape itself. If, let's say, if you go on Greg's riverboat and have a nice river cruise, you will see very iconic, very historical, beautiful architecture with lots of heritage. But like 5 seconds later, you will see something super new. You will pass through the city, you will see all the skyscrapers, you will see something with a lot of very high-tech displays. And London travel landscape is very much like the London cityscape itself. That's what we can offer as a city.
I mean, the 32 boroughs and plus the City of London, I mean, it's not for nothing, it's known as that City of Villages, and it's that rich tapestry of depth and breadth of offer, which we're now starting to unpick and explore and celebrate even more than has been done historically, perhaps.
Yeah, if you can
if I can just interrupt, we got some really interesting conundrum here, which we're going to explore in a minute, because on one level, London is a city of iconic attractions. And if you just stick to the iconic attractions, you're going to have a really busy 7 days. I mean, there are a whole series of alpha things that people really want to see, which have drawn them to London to come and see. There are other experiences that they wish, but never forget that visiting an alpha attraction is the experience they're seeking. It's why they're coming here. So we've got an interesting balance there. The good news for London, I'm just looking at it in terms of a European perspective, is that London can absorb millions of people. It breathes in 2 to 3 million commuters a day, and it can just soak up vast volumes. And so we don't have the sort of problems that other cities have got. We don't have the congestion problems that other people have got. And as Richard has pointed out, not only have we got all the boroughs that people can go to, but all the attractions are spread throughout London. So, we've got people going to Greenwich, we've got people going to Kew, we've got people going to Hampton Court. And these are all on the river, but I mean, there's a whole host of other things for people to do. Now, what I'm going to do, if I may, is I wish to have a quick video from our sponsors. It's just halfway point exactly. So, Sophie, who's in charge of the video, could you please run the video? Right, thank you. We will run it again before the end. Maybe we have slightly higher volume next time, but thank you very much to our sponsors. Now, can I just move on from this just a little bit? I'm interested in exploring, and it will become very apparent why I'm interested in exploring this in a couple of weeks. But do you think there is scope to promote London outside the high season? Is a question, and I think I'm going to turn to Richard first because I'm sure you've got an angle on shouldering off peak demand for London.
Yes, thank you, Tom. The simple answer is yes, of course. You know, let's spread the love throughout the year, and we're doing just that. And it might be quite timely just to tap into one or two campaigns that perhaps reflect that and reflect some of the emerging statistics. So, we've talked about some of those unique and surprising, and I mentioned about how we're merging those messages between iconic and the unusual, and that dovetails neatly into our London Makes It Possible campaign, which is our always on campaign. We launched that in May to precisely try and answer that challenge that we've posed today around how do we highlight both London's iconic and the alpha visits and also the surprising experiences, and this is all tapping into that. How do we invite people to stay longer, see more, and promote the fact that London is welcome and inclusive, and strengthen at the same time the global brand. And the activity runs right across the piece in terms of our social and digital platforms. So phase one, which took place for the first 3 months since launch in May, was all around iconic London. We then followed that up by looking at immersive experiences and telling the story of those. Just coming to an end, we've started looking into the third sort of core segment around outdoors and green spaces and wellness, and then forthcoming leading through the autumn and winter period, where we're drilling down into food and drink, and we're working very closely with our neighbourhoods and our boroughs to elicit those locally led stories around provenance and independence and such like and so forth, to really celebrate the depth and breadth of food and drink. And then I could go on, but I won't, in terms of how we're then developing that into our TikTok series around London Makes It Possible, to reflect our motivations behind our young travellers who obviously use social media and AI driven tactics to decide where they're going to go on holiday. But I think, Tom, that probably answers your question in respect of how we're communicating the message. It's absolutely throughout the year. And as I said, to use that phrase again, this is about spreading the love for 12 months of the year.
Shirley, I mean, do you see? I suppose the question to you is: when is high season and when is there reduced demand?
That's a good question. High seasons for us, and from my previous life in the tour operator as well, that I could see was definitely the school holidays. For example, summer holidays, June, July, August, half terms, Easter holidays. And to be fair, well, a lot of people want to drive customers to low season. We would love to as well, but my message also is to embrace the high season too. There are people who are with family and kids, or even teachers who may not have kids. They could only travel in the high season. So we can't change that, and that will always be the case. But to drive lower season is to entice those who actually have the option to go in the lower season. May it be a campaign, or maybe use Halloween, use Christmas, use all these different types of festivities and celebrations to raise awareness, to make your attractions or make the destination more attractive, or give your customers a bit of an incentive, entice them with a more attractive deal, entice them with an upgraded service, find out from your direct customers, talk to your tour operators, talk to your ticket resellers, OTAs, and find out what works best for them.
I think you're right. I think the point is that tour operators add value when sales are tougher.
Absolutely.
Now, nobody welcomes a tour operator when bookings are flying out the door. You have to fight for availability in such circumstances. And low season, in some ways, is an opportunity. I do like your idea of a Halloween offer for Westminster Abbey. It's an interesting concept. Can I ask you how you see low season options?
It's very interesting to hear you saying this, Shirley, because for us as a tour operator, we don't operate London as a only destination. London is part of longer tours for us. So we have a lot of our tours that start and finish in London. We may go out into mainland Europe for a couple of weeks, even longer, or we may go into UK and Ireland for a couple of weeks as well. So for us, our market understand that mainland Europe is really hot during the peak season of July and August. So actually our peak season for our tours is normally May, June, September, October. But we are able to promote a lot of November, and we are also able to promote a lot March and April, just avoiding those kind of 10 days of Easter, that becomes peak season as well. So we actually operate insane number of tours. I mean, I've been in the industry in tour operators for 20 years. I've never seen so many departures in October, November, ever before, as I have seen in the last 2 years, because we can give them better value for money. You are at the time when, yes, the days are starting to get shorter, and it is starting to get cold, but it's not that cold yet, and it's not that dark yet, and you can maximize that to give them better value for money. And then to say the comparison from London, how well London does these months of the year compared to other places in the UK and Europe is incredible. So for us as a tour operator, we have some issues during November operating our tours. Not all of the sites in the UK are open. A lot of places, you know, Northern England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, they start closing the certain castles, certain sites, they close earlier. And in our well-packed itineraries, sometimes we're not able to reach to those museums anymore on time. London never sleeps. You don't have that problem in London. You know, the places are still open in November. We have, you know, late evenings in some of the places. So actually it opens us amazing opportunities for us to operate at that time of the year when others may not think it's the most popular time of the year.
May I also?
I think it's a great point, but I wouldn't use it as a slogan for accommodation. I think maybe London never hibernates might be the way to do it.
Yeah.
Gregory, have you got an angle on this?
I do, actually. And I think the key to activating low season is working with the local neighborhoods, something Richard mentioned before. And it's kind of connecting the iconic landmarks with, you know, with we all know, with the neighborhoods we really want to remember. And I think that's the way forward, because activities in local neighborhoods can be all year round, making these places accessible, making their customers aware that there is so much to do, not just in the peak season, but also in a shoulder season. I think that's going to be the key for that. And I think the best opportunity we're going to have is going to be next year, where in July and August probably will be heavily affected by the events in America, which is the major tournament, FIFA World Cup. And the peak season will be affected here because you would expect lots of visitors from across the world traveling to America, Canada, and Mexico to attend the event. And that's going to have an impact on how we're going to perform next year. As an opportunity, that means that previously considered as a low season might actually be something to focus on.
And I also add one point, very interesting, Greg, what you said, by the way. Another thing to promote low season is, again, collaborate with your resellers, collaborate with your tour operators. If you work with Go City, talk to me. If you work with other tour operators or OTAs, talk to your relevant people. A lot of these companies have very good international reach, either on social media or local sales offices or representatives. companies like these, like us, will be able to help you amplify the message that you wanted to say. For example, come in the low season, what you can do, what your attractions can do, what your product experiences can do to upgrade the experience, for example. Yeah, communications is one of the most important things, I think.
Just looking at the comments, and thank you so much for the people posting questions and statements in the comment bar. I cannot commend you to do this often enough, but someone's just pointed out that in my experience, the low season is a great time to shift focus to locals and corporate groups, plus collaborations selling special packages. I think it's an interesting point because on one level, when we're selling London as a destination, we're actually selling the service economy of London. We're obviously selling the service economy of London, and the service economy of London is principally sustained by the inhabitants. So what we're selling when we're selling London is the London, which has raised this, that the locals support. And maybe and you know you go to London perhaps for theatre, for example. And the reason why you do that is that the London theatre audience, which consists mainly of Londoners, sustains one of the most vibrant theatre environments in the world. And on an inverse way, you may go to Milan for the food or Paris for the shopping, simply because the inhabitants there have a particular taste in food and a particular discrimination for shopping. London, of course, can provide all three, but I don't want to get down that particular rabbit hole. But I'm just intrigued. Is there any shift of focus that you need to engage in low season? Richard, you were about to intervene.
Sorry, Tom, butting in there. I was just picking up on Alexandra's point in the chat that word collaboration is really key here. So we work really closely, as I mentioned at the start, in terms of our place engagement program with the boroughs. That's how you do it. That's how you start to unlock some of the rich seam of stories and local events that they have going on at certain times of the year, particularly in those shoulder periods. So we work really closely and develop those trusted partnerships with our boroughs and our places right across London, and work out ways in which and mechanics by which they can get that information into us, and when we can start celebrating it through the various campaigns, one or two of which I've touched upon. That is really key. And I know it's an oft-used word, collaboration and partnerships, but it's never truer than it is when we come to reconsider or look at new ways of telling stories around our destinations.
And Tom, could I please add something else as well? That we've mentioned multiple times immersive experiences and be part of the locals, and how maybe the off-season allow us to do this. But I just want to be very clear as well that providing immersive local experiences is not as easy as providing the iconic sites of the city. I would recommend any tour operator, and obviously this is knowledge that we as a DMC have, but I would recommend any tour operator that if you're gonna take people to parts of the city that they are not the obvious ones, it is tremendously important that these parts of the city are shown by professionals, because you may be taking people. I mean, it's wonderful to have a local guide that is going to take you and is going to explain you absolutely everything about Westminster and Buckingham Palace, etc. But some of these places, we could even step back and say they could be self-explanatory. But if you're going to be taking someone to, we were mentioning before, Spitalfields, the East End, imagine dropping yourself in the middle of a street in the East End, and you look left, right, and center, and you're like, where am I? Why am I here? What am I meant to be doing? I think the way that a professional and a local tour guide is able to awake these stories and present these is going to have a huge impact in your guest actually having a very positive, immersive experience. We know that taking people to this kind of like Hackney, Tower Hamlets, Barrows, it provides guests with a very deeper, layer of London sightseeing that help them to understand the ways of immigrations of the city during the 19th and 20th century, and also it shows how multicultural our city is but you need someone who suddenly say to you, oh, do you know what this corner used to be? Or do you know the meaning of the street names? Or, you know, telling you the stories about Cockney identity. All of this, plus the eclectic mix of, you know, vintage clothes stores, street food, music venues, it will provide you an incredible experience, but you will need to hold people by their hands a little bit more than you do when we go and see Westminster Barrow. So that's very important to keep in mind to provide excellent experiences.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm slightly lost that London's is a city with real grain to it on grit, and it's very important to bring that out, but perhaps not bring it out quite too strongly. Good old-fashioned sort of prejudice and violence, which used to be sort of normal in London's East End, is probably not one that we wish to promote. Gregory, is there any to this that you've got an opinion on? I mean, you know, is there any way we can make the low season offer special?
Yeah, I would stress the obvious, the partnerships, yes, but it's the way how we look at the partnerships. We tend to look in a very polarized way, buyer-seller, which I think opportunity for activation low season is looking in a kind of multi-vertical partnerships, where supplier is becoming a buyer and buyer can become a supplier. It's complicated mixture, but it provides opportunities for kind of creative work and partnering with the local areas and different companies, different suppliers, different buyers. There's lots of opportunity. We work on quite few new offerings exactly in that way, and we're hoping to announce it within coming weeks, perhaps months.
And Shirley?
Sorry, on low season?
Yeah, I was thinking if there is, you know, is there any particular way we can change our offer to make low season more attractive? I suppose is the question.
Yeah, I think every attraction might be a little bit different. So for example, I remember the Tower of London would have the poppy display. So using different things that are unique to the attraction at different times of the year and highlighting it, making special experiences, or having a little different exhibition, for example, or changing, if you're a walking tour supplier, changing your tour slightly to fit the seasonality, making it special, making your product more special compared to how it normally is in the lower season. That's one potential thing to do. Give customers an incentive, try to amplify the messages using social channels. For example, GoCity has like 1 million social followers. A lot of other OTAs or travel influencers have a big impact as well on people who are looking and researching for their holidays. Make good use of those to make the low season product a bit more unique and special compared to what the high season could be.
Thank you. Well, we have a note here saying that Blue Badge guides are a great resource in London in sharing the history and culture of all areas of the city. You'll note it's not a question, it's a statement. Thank you for that. I'm just intrigued. We've got another question which is posed slightly beforehand, which is slightly strange, but it seems to make sense, which is, to what extent is London used as a base to explore the rest of the UK? And if you look at London, if you just look at the rail map, everything radiates out or seems to radiate out from London. You can get almost anywhere. You can get to Edinburgh in 4 hours or 4.5 hours from London if you so chose. Are you seeing London being used as a base for further exploration? I'm intrigued. I mean, I'm conscious that this is of necessity a London-focused webinar. But you will notice that a number of the sightseeing companies, for instance, sell excursions that go way out of London around the place, and maybe that's one of the attractions. Are you finding that? I mean, Letitia, for example, you're running escorted tours.
Yeah, 100% actually. When we have people who come on European tours and the only part of the UK that they're going to be touching is London, they are all tremendously interested to head out for the day to Windsor, to head out for the day to Oxford. They are all very easily accessible. But even Bath and Stonehenge, people head out like the typical combo Oxford, Stonehenge and Bath is a very big 12-hour kind of day, well packed, but people definitely want to see those places as well. And they are very easily accessible from London, and it's definitely possible. When we see the people that come on the tours to explore the UK, they don't tend to go out of London, and they maximize their time in London for those days because they know they're gonna get to see more. But I think we have said so many times to people, London is not representative of the UK because it's so different, that people want to have that bit more, I'm not sure if the right word is British feel, but a bit more classic feel to it.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree, Letitia, with that, and that's something that actually we do as well. Going back to what I mentioned right at the outset, that those that stay longer have a more rich and rewarding experience. So that staying longer piece doesn't have to be necessarily staying longer in London, which may sound counterintuitive coming from somebody who works for London and Partners. But so, for example, we have worked frequently on gateway campaigns. We currently have one at the moment. There's some commercial sensitivity, so I can't go into too much detail. But we've got a London and Scotland gateway campaign, which we're targeting the United States visitors with. And this is primarily around that key drive around experience seekers. We position in London and Scotland within a single trip. You've got the mix between city, coastal, countryside and cultural experiences, iconic, local food and drink, adventure and escapism, all the themes that we've touched upon today, we're exploring and developing through that campaign. And as I said, it's not the first time we have done that. We're also aligning, for example, with that campaign with Visit Britain, who talk about their See Things Differently campaign, as well as their Star in Great Britain film locations tapping into authenticity and locality of experience. So I would absolutely agree, Tom, with both the question you pose and with Letitia, that we do consider, even from a London and Partners perspective, where else, because that will lead to a even more rewarding and enriching experience, both of London and your experience of the UK.
I think what you ought to be doing is you ought to be telling all the regions that London is their best customer. This is the way to look at it.
Well, 73% of people currently only stay in London. Who visit you.
You got to get,
So,
but if they
absolutely.
want
So
to
there's a
attract
great
people,
potential.
yeah. Okay, Shirley, I mean, you've had a long experience of this. I mean, is
Yeah.
there any way that London can amplify its role in that area?
You mean a bit outside London?
Well, I'm just saying,
No.
using London as a base to
As a
explore
base.
the rest of the UK.
Definitely. So from my previous life in the tour operators, for example, some customers would come to the UK and do a massive tour and stay in London for 2 or 3 nights and go on the coach and go everywhere else and drive back to London and fly back out. There were a large number of groups who would come to London, stay in London as a base and do excursions out to Kent, to Oxford, to like places of like Blenheim Palace, going down to see Seven Sisters, for example. It is very popular as well. And even now in Go City, for example, even though our pass is essentially the London pass, we include places that are a little bit outside because we know that customers who are coming to London, they want to see things a little bit outside London as well after they do all the iconic experiences. So there's places like Hampton Court, Windsor, even Brighton in the portfolio. So definitely, like you say, London can be a customer for the nearby regions. Absolutely.
It's fascinating you say that. I mean, you just said Seven Sisters, which is a very specific destination. And I've got a horrible feeling those of us who've gone to Beachy Head and turned around and wondered why there are quite so many Chinese visitors. Actually, the person responsible for this is probably Shirley Sim, who was in charge of the largest wholesaler bringing people in from China into the UK. Well, that's a separate matter. You've blown your cover, Shirley. Now we're reaching the end. I just really want to ask everybody, I suppose, one question. And I know everyone that we haven't. Those of you who ask questions about hotels, we really haven't gone there. I think we need to have almost a separate webinar on London hotels. It may be a kind of head-banging, screaming session, but we need to have one at some stage. So we'll defer that to a special hotel discussion. I think, can I just ask everyone, if there is one destination that they think is going to take off, and it could be an obvious one like, I don't know, longer opening times at Buckingham Palace, but one destination they think is going to be the destination of 2026, what would it be? Richard, over to you. You got to pick one.
Okay, I'm going to pick the Royal Docks. That's one of our significant growth areas from a London perspective. There aren't many others, but some of the work and activity going on there. I mean, it's the Mayor of London's largest regeneration program for a start. You got 175 hectares, I believe, or somewhere in that sort of vicinity. I think we've already touched upon in terms of its connectivity as well. So I think that area for me will be one that moving forward, if we're talking about areas that are quite significantly outside the core honeypot central London, that will see significant growth. 2026 probably a little bit early there, Tom, because there's quite a lot of ambitious work there to be had. But certainly that will be one to watch this space around.
Look for the future. Gregory, have you got any particular thing you'd like to highlight in terms of what you think is going to take off next year?
Not that is not already very popular, but I think Greenwich Peninsula is still growing in popularity. There's lots of synergy between the companies, local DMCs, DMOs, and the companies operating that region. It's growing popularity. The awareness is growing, how accessible that destination is from central London, how easy it is to get there, move around. And obviously activation campaigns like recently in a naval college with the movie set or costumes, Guinness record. It just brings more attention to the place, and I think that's what's going to kick off really, really strongly.
Wow! So everything from the sort of O2 right the way down to the Royal Hospital.
Cable car up the O2, Greenwich itself. Yes, definitely the area for growth.
Well, Visit Greenwich would be delighted to hear this. Letitia, where's your tip for next year?
I'm going to take you to the completely opposite side of the city then. I'm going to take you to Richmond. Richmond have seen an incredible amount of tourists. There is a ridiculous number of tours in Richmond based on a TV show, a football TV show that most of us know. And there were a lot of new things coming up in Richmond. Well, this TV show is coming up with a new season next year, and I think that's going to perk up again.
Thank you. Well, you now let me think that Quinlan Terrier is hot, which is excellent. Shirley, what's your tip for next year?
I was going to say, can I pick two? But Greg already mentioned one of my picks. So Greenwich, definitely one of them. And another one that I would want to say is Hampton Court Palace. It's such a lovely place, and a lot of us locals know about it, but so many international travelers haven't been there before. The palace itself, the garden, and even the area right outside the palace by the river, that little bridge, such a beautiful place.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. I mean, this webinar was called London Calling. I think partly out of it may have been a reference to the early call sign of the BBC, but I think it may have been in reference to the eponymous track from the album by The Clash. I would not recommend anyone listening to that too carefully if they're trying to sell London. It's not a vision which we normally would promote to tourists. But it's just down to me to thank everybody here for contributing. Thank you, Shirley. Thank you, Gregory. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Letitia. Thank you all so much for making this conversation really flow. We're going to see, before I start the video, which is about to go, I just want to thank the audience as well for taking part in this. And thank you for posting comments and questions. And with that, I will bid you goodbye, but let's watch the video. Let's go. Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Don't forget BIM, don't forget GEM. Thank you all very much. Thank you, panel. Thank you, audience. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank
Bye.
you.
Have a good day, everyone.